The reggae music, it is the heartbeat of the people.
They brought rhythm, soul, and fire to the world. But behind the music, some reggae legends faced gunfire instead of glory. In this video, we're looking at 15 reggae icons who were shot, and every one of their stories has left a scar on the soundtrack of reggae history. Early B. Before auto-tune and TikTok trends, reggae was ruled by voices that told raw, rhythmic stories, and few did it better than Early B. Born Orlando Neal in 1957, this lyrical powerhouse came up tough. He quit school at 17 to help his mother and brothers, clocked in as a machine clerk, and within a year got bumped up to acting supervisor. But punching a time card couldn't compete with holding the mic. Early B jumped into the music scene with Soul Imperial Hi-Fi, rocking stages with a young up-and-comer named Wild Apache, later known as Supercat. His nickname? It wasn't hype. He showed up to gigs early, got on the mic first, and brought the heat before the crowd even warmed up. People started calling him Early Bird, then Early B, and it stuck. But it wasn't just timing. Early B had bars for days. Songs like Sunday Dish, Learn Fee Drive, and Wheel Wheelie were crowd anthems. When he joined Kilimanjaro Sound, he and Supercat turned the scene upside down. Kilimanjaro even set a still unmatched record, 52 straight nights of shows in Kingston. Later, Early B made waves in the US, performing everywhere from New York to Toronto, and tearing up the dancehall circuit in England. But on September 11, '94, while performing in Dorchester, Massachusetts, the beat stopped. He was shot on stage at the Windsor Cricket Club. The motive? Still a mystery. His killer? Never found. Even now, decades later, his voice still bounces through speakers worldwide. Tribute albums and digital re-releases keep the Doctor's legacy alive, because Early B may have left early, but his impact is still right on time. Henry Junjo Laws. When it comes to shaping dancehall, Henry Junjo Laws was the real deal. Born in Kingston's Waterhouse district, Junjo rose up in the late 1970s with a sound that was gritty, unpolished, and completely addictive. He didn't wait around for the industry to catch up. He pushed it forward. Junjo had a gift, taking raw street rhythms and turning them into hits. He produced tracks that created blueprints for the future. His label, Volcano, was so much more than a business. It was a movement. The Volcano sound system lit up Jamaica and beyond, launching artists like Yellowman, Barrington Levy, Toyan, and Frankie Paul into the spotlight. His regular studio crew, the Roots Radix. With them, he helped bridge traditional reggae with the sharper edges of early dancehall. But Junjo's story took a turn. In the mid-'80s, just as the digital era was creeping in, he was hit with drug charges in the US and ended up behind bars. Timing couldn't have been worse. While the genre was evolving, he was stuck on pause. When he came back in the '90s, he was still producing, working with stars like Beanie Man and Ninja Man, but the scene had shifted. The cutting edge had moved, and Junjo, for all his legacy, was no longer leading the charge. Then came the final chapter. On June 14, 1999, while in London, Junjo was killed in a drive-by shooting. Two men, likely tied to gang violence, opened fire. The case was never solved. He may not have lived to see how massive dancehall would become, but make no mistake, without Junjo Laws, there would be no foundation. He was the architect of the early sound, and his influence still echoes in every bass drop and DJ chant that followed. Prince Farry. Prince Farry didn't just chant over riddims, he boomed like a prophet with something urgent to say. Born Michael James Williams in Spanish Town, he was a security guard turned mic man who eventually earned the nickname the Voice of Thunder for his deep, commanding delivery. His style wasn't flashy, it was raw, spiritual, and rooted in the old-school Jamaican tradition of storytelling. He got his first real break almost by accident. When another DJ failed to show up for a recording session, Prince Farry stepped in and stunned the studio. From there, he released a string of albums like Psalms for I and Under Heavy Manners, blending biblical themes, street-level commentary, and hypnotic grooves. He preferred to be called a chanter rather than a toaster, and his work often came off like spoken word before that was even a thing. Prince Farry's impact stretched beyond Jamaica. In the UK, he became a mentor to producer Adrian Sherwood and collaborated with groups like Sons of Arca and Singers and Players. His dub albums, especially the Cry Tough Dub Encounter series, are still considered classics. But on September 15, 1983, it all came crashing down. He was shot during a robbery at his home in Kingston. The shooting was allegedly over a money dispute, and later died in the hospital. His death sent shockwaves through the reggae community. It hit so hard that Adrian Sherwood stepped away from reggae production for a while, devastated by the loss. Even now, his name pops up in unlikely places, from lyrics by The Clash to tributes by indie bands. Prince Far, I didn't just make music, he made noise that mattered, and even in silence, his voice still echoes. Peter Tosh. Peter Tosh was a musical firestarter, a revolutionary wrapped in dreadlocks with a guitar and a cause. As a founding member of the Wailers, Tosh helped shape reggae into the politically charged powerhouse it became. But for all his boldness on stage and fearlessness in lyrics, his life came to a tragic and violent end in the very place he should have been safest: home. On September 11, 1987, Tosh returned to his Barbican home in St. Andrew, Jamaica, expecting a typical night. Instead, it turned into a nightmare. A group of 3 men, one of whom Tosh had once helped after prison, stormed the house demanding money. Tosh said he had none. They didn't believe him, and they didn't leave. What followed was hours of terror. Friends and associates who arrived were taken hostage. Tosh, ever defiant, never gave them what they wanted. And then the chaos exploded. Gunfire, screams, blood. Tosh was shot twice in the head and died instantly. 2 others, DJ Jeff Free-Eye Dixon and herbalist Wilton Doc Brown, were also killed. Several others were wounded, including Tosh's partner, a drummer, and more. The mastermind of the attack, Dennis Lepo Laban, ironically someone Tosh had tried to help, was later caught, convicted, and sentenced to death, which was eventually commuted. Peter Tosh had always lived loud, demanded justice, and lit up stages with his message of equality and resistance. But in the end, it was betrayal that silenced him. His death was not just a robbery gone wrong, it was a brutal reminder of how even legends aren't bulletproof. He was 42. His legacy, still marching on, still refusing to be quiet, just like the man himself, King Tubby. Born Osborne Ruddock, he began as a quiet electronics whiz fixing radios in Kingston, but by the time his journey ended, he'd practically reinvented how the world listens to music. Dub wasn't just a genre, it was Tubby's playground. With his self-built sound system and custom mixers, Tubby didn't remix tracks. He deconstructed them. He turned songs inside out, isolating drum hits, slicing out vocals, and layering in reverb and echo like spells. This wasn't just engineering, it was sonic alchemy. From the streets of Jamaica to the underground clubs of London and New York, his influence fueled entire movements. Hip-hop, house, dubstep, drum and bass, and beyond. But brilliance doesn't make anyone invincible. On February 6, 1989, Tubby returned home after a studio session. As he approached his house in Duhaney Park, Kingston, someone was waiting. A gunman, likely attempting a robbery, opened fire. The man who had given the world so many echoes was silenced in an instant. He was 48. The reggae community was rocked. Tributes poured in from artists across the globe, yet justice never followed. Tubby's killer was never caught, and the case remains unsolved to this day. It's a cruel irony. A man who could control silence and sound with such precision couldn't stop the noise of violence that claimed his life. Still, Tubby's spirit pulses through every bass drop and echo chamber in modern music. He was the king of frequencies, the father of dub, and even though someone stole his future, they couldn't erase his vibration. King Tubby's sound lives on, remixed, revered, and immortal. Junior Braithweight. Before Bob Marley became a global icon, there was another voice in the Wailers that turned heads. One so striking, even Marley admitted it made him rethink his sound. That voice belonged to Junior Braithweight, a teenage talent from Kingston who sang like a soul-schooled falsetto straight out of Motown. At just 14, Braithweight joined the original lineup of the Wailing Wailers in 1963, right as ska was electrifying Jamaica's streets. He didn't just blend in though. Tracks like It Hurts to Be Alone and Don't Ever Leave Me featured Braithweight front and center, showcasing a tender, emotional range that producer Coxsone Dodd once called the best in the group. With him, the group had a sweetness, Without him, they had to evolve. But fame wasn't Braithwait's endgame. After just 8 months, he made a quiet exit and moved to the US, trading microphones for medical ambitions. For 2 decades, he lived in Chicago and Wisconsin, far from the reggae spotlight. In 1984, he returned to Jamaica to help revive the Wailers alongside Bunny Wailer, but tragedy shadowed their plans. Peter Tosh was murdered in 1987, and the reunion dreams fell apart. Then, in a tragic twist, Braithweight himself was shot and killed in '99 alongside fellow artist Chaka Scott in Kingston. A voice once destined for greatness was silenced in a flash of violence, adding his name to a long, heartbreaking list of reggae legends whose lives ended in gunfire. Junior Braithweight may have only stood in the spotlight briefly, but his voice shaped the early soul of reggae and left echoes still heard today. Hugh Mundell. Some say Hugh Mundell was a prophet with a microphone, and his music sounded like it came from somewhere beyond the struggle. By the age of 16, he had recorded Africa Must Be Free by 1983, a visionary album that would become a cornerstone of roots reggae. His voice, youthful yet wise beyond his years, carried the weight of a movement. Born in East Kingston in 1962, Mundell seemed destined for a different path, perhaps sports or law, given his upbringing and athletic skill. But destiny had other plans when he crossed paths with Augustus Pablo, the dub pioneer who saw genius in the teenager and gave him his first major recording opportunity. Together, they crafted timeless anthems that sounded both ancient and urgent, steeped in Rastafarian consciousness and revolutionary spirit. Despite his growing reputation, Mundell remained a humble and reserved figure, rarely performing live. He was a mentor to rising artists like Junior Reid and Laxley Castell, and recorded under the alias Ja Levi, carving out a unique space in the reggae underground. But Mundell's rising star was extinguished far too early. On October 14, 1983, at just 21 years old, he was gunned down in his car on Grants Penn Avenue in Kingston. The shooter, Ricardo Codrington, was later convicted of manslaughter. Sitting beside Mundell were his wife and Junior Reid, who survived the shooting and later shared the haunting details. Though he recorded just 5 albums, Mundell left a legacy that echoes through generations of conscious reggae. His music continues to inspire, his words still relevant, his absence deeply felt. Hugh Mundell was a bright flame in a dark time, burning briefly, but leaving a light we still follow today. General Ekko. Before Cardi B, before Prince, before your favorite artist dropped their first scandalous lyric, there was General Ekko, the Jamaican DJ who cracked reggae wide open with a grin, a mic, and some seriously cheeky wordplay. Born Earl Anthony Robinson in 1955, Ekko liked to bend the rules, so much so that he rewrote the entire book on what reggae lyrics could say. Coming out of Kingston's Fletcher's Land neighborhood, Ekko was no ordinary DJ. While most of his peers were chanting about righteousness and revolution, Ekko brought a risque twist to the mic, flipping the script with his bold, often explicit commentary. And people loved it. His signature style was humorous, raunchy, undeniably catchy, and it earned him the nickname Ranking Slackness and made him a legend on the sound system scene. He built his name on systems like Gemini and Stereophonic before launching his own, Ekko Tone Hi-Fi, and his fan base exploded through live recordings passed hand-to-hand on yard tapes. His breakout hit, Arlene, layered over the now iconic Stalag Riddim, shot to #1 in Jamaica and set dance halls on fire. With albums like The Slackest and 12 Inches of Pleasure, he became a cult icon, ushering in a new wave of DJs who dared to speak louder, freer, and naughtier. But just as he was ascending, tragedy struck. In 1980, at just 24, Ekko was gunned down by police under murky circumstances, alongside 2 companions. No real answers ever surfaced. His sudden death sent shockwaves through the music world and inspired tributes, including one from fellow performers Clint Eastwood and General Saint. Ekko pushed boundaries and built new ones, and even decades later, the echoes of his mic check still shake the dance hall. Nittygritty. Reggae's tapestry is woven with legends, but few stories hit as raw and unexpected as that of Glenn Augustus Holness, better known as Nittygritty. Born in Kingston's Augusttown, he was the second child in a big family, raised with strong spiritual roots. His voice and style carved a unique space in reggae's vibrant scene before tragedy struck, ending his journey far too early. Nittygritty's musical path started in the 1970s when he formed the Soulites, but it wasn't until the 1980s that his star truly rose. Early solo tracks produced by Sugar Minott laid the foundation, and his work with iconic sound systems like Zodiac brought his presence to the forefront. The real breakthrough came in 1985 with producer King Jammy. Together, they reimagined Hog in a Minty, a beloved Jamaican folk tune, giving it fresh life and securing Nittygritty's place in reggae history. His debut album, Turbocharged, and the notable split album Musical Confrontation with King Kong followed, marking him as a force to be reckoned with. Though he eventually relocated to London and then New York City, Nittygritty kept the music flowing, albeit at a slower pace, releasing albums like General Penitentiary and Jah and the Family. But on June 24, 1991, his life was abruptly cut short outside Brooklyn's Superpower record shop in a violent incident that sent shockwaves through the reggae community. Initially, fellow artist Supercat was suspected, but the police later cleared him, ruling the shooting as self-defense. Nittygritty's legacy remains alive in the rhythms and stories of reggae. He was a talented artist whose voice echoed deep cultural roots and whose untimely death reminds us how fragile the spotlight can be. Donald Shaw. When it comes to iconic Jamaican voices, Donald "Tabby" Shaw's name shines bright. His silky vocals helped define the Mighty Diamonds, one of reggae's most celebrated groups, for over 5 decades. Born in Kingston's Trenchtown, Tabby, along with Fitzroy, Bunny Simpson, and Lloyd Judge Ferguson, formed the band that would charm the world with smooth harmonies and timeless hits. Starting as school friends and initially called The Limelight, their transformation into the Mighty Diamonds was inspired by Motown legends like The Temptations and soulful Jamaican rocksteady stars such as John Holt. The early 70s saw the trio laying down tracks with producers like Pat Francis and Derek Harriott. But their big break came in 1975, working with Joseph "Jojo" Hu Kim at Channel One Studio. Hits like Hey Girl and Country Living skyrocketed their popularity, culminating in the 1976 classic Right Time album, an international success that showcased their knack for catchy, meaningful tunes. Despite a few commercial setbacks, such as the underwhelming Ice on Fire album recorded in New Orleans, the Mighty Diamonds kept evolving. Their 1981 album Changes brought them renewed acclaim, especially with the track Pass the Coochie, which later inspired the global hit Pass the Dutchie. The group's sound adapted fluidly through reggae's digital age, resulting in over 40 albums and decades of influence. Tragically, on March 29, 2022, Tabby's life was violently cut short in a drive-by shooting in St. Andrew, Jamaica, a death police speculated was linked to tensions surrounding his son. Just days later, Bunny Simpson also passed away. These losses rocked the reggae community, but their harmonies continue to resonate, and that is a testament to the enduring power of the Mighty Diamonds' music and legacy. Lucky Dube. Not Jamaican, but a reggae titan nonetheless, Lucky Dube carved his own legendary path as South Africa's best-selling reggae artist, making waves far beyond his homeland. Born in 1964 in Ermelo, his early life was marked by challenges, yet his mother's hopeful naming of him Lucky proved prophetic. Starting as a gardener, Dubet's love for music blossomed in school choirs, eventually leading him to form the Skyway Band. Early on, he played Zulu Mbakanga pop with his cousin, before a musical awakening brought him to the Rastafari movement and reggae. Inspired by icons like Bob Marley and Peter Tosh, he saw reggae's potent social messages as a perfect fit for South Africa's fight against apartheid. Though his first reggae release, Rastas Never Die, 1984, faced bans and poor sales, Dubet didn't back down. His 1985 follow-up, Think About the Children, went platinum and set the stage for his rise as a reggae voice for social justice. His 1988 album Prisoner became South Africa's best-selling album of the 80s and 90s, earning him multiple awards and international acclaim. Touring globally, Dubet shared stages with legends like Sting and Peter Gabriel, spreading his message of racial equality and African pride. Beyond music, he also appeared in films, further showing his creative range. Tragically, on October 18, 2007, Dubet's life was violently ended during a carjacking in Johannesburg. The assailants, reportedly unaware of his identity, targeted his Chrysler 300C. 5 men were arrested, 3 were convicted, and sentenced to life imprisonment. Lucky Dubé's legacy remains alive through his 22 albums and his role as a powerful voice against oppression. His music still resonates worldwide, reminding us that reggae's heartbeat transcends borders, carrying messages of hope and resistance wherever it's heard. Winston Riley. From launching the Techniques in 1962 to producing some of the genre's biggest legends, Riley's fingerprints are all over the roots and rise of Jamaican music. But behind the hits and heavy bass lines, his life ended in tragedy. After multiple attacks, he was shot in the head in 2011 and died 3 months later. If you've ever heard the redeem behind countless hip-hop, dancehall, and reggae tracks, chances are you've heard Riley's iconic Stalag. First released as Stalag 17 in 1973, that beat kept reappearing. Stalag 18, Stalag 19, even Ring the Alarm. Quick, becoming the most sampled reggae rhythm of all time. Think of it like the drum beat that never dies. His production credits read like a Hall of Fame lineup. Riley worked with pioneers like Alton Ellis and Johnny Osborne, helped launch the careers of stars like Buju Banton and Sister Nancy, and produced the wild, genre-defying album The Slackest for General Ekko in 1979. He even had a hand in the 1971 chart-topping hit Double Barrel, which blew up in the UK and Netherlands. But Riley's later years were marked by violence. After surviving multiple previous attacks, he was shot in his own home in Kingston in November 2011. He fell into a coma and never woke up, dying in January 2012. The motive remains a mystery, but the loss was undeniable. His influence still echoes in every beat-heavy drop and dancehall classic. Winston Riley didn't just produce reggae, he shaped the sound of generations. And tragically, someone tried to silence it. Carlton Barrett. Carlton Barrett was the pulse of a revolution. With rhythms that reshaped reggae and a hi-hat pattern that sounded like thunder wrapped in silk, Barrett helped define the sound of Bob Marley and the Wailers. But the man who brought groove to the globe met a fate as shocking as it was heartbreaking. Born in 1950 in Kingston, Jamaica, Carlton's musical journey began with nothing more than a few old paint cans and a passion for rhythm. Alongside his brother Aston family man Barrett, he formed groups like the Soulmates and the Hippies before finding global fame as the heartbeat behind Bob Marley. His signature one-drop rhythm didn't just keep time, it became a symbol of resistance, soul, and freedom. Throughout the 1970s and early 80s, Barrett's drumming lifted not just Marley's music, but also the works of icons like Peter Tosh and Bunny Wailer. Whether playing for Augustus Pablo or helping shape the dub reggae sound, Barrett was a quiet architect of Jamaican music history. But on April 17, 1987, that rhythm came to a sudden, violent halt. Barrett was gunned down outside his Kingston home. He was just 36. The world mourned, and the reggae community lost one of its most influential figures. The tragedy deepened years later, when Carlton's widow, Albertine Barrett, was convicted of orchestrating his murder. Alongside 2 accomplices, her alleged lover and a hired gun, she was sentenced in '91, closing one of reggae's darkest chapters. Carlton Barrett may be gone, but his rhythm lives on in every pulse of reggae music. His legacy is felt in every snare, every drop, every beat that dares to rise after heartbreak. Panhead. He was poised to become a household name in dancehall, but fate had other plans. Panhead, born Anthony Johnson, burst onto the Jamaican music scene in the mid-1980s with raw energy and a sharp lyrical edge. Riding the rising tide of gun-centric lyrics in 90s dancehall, he made waves with early hits like Gunman Tune and Respect Gunman. His style was bold, defiant, and unflinchingly honest. He was an authentic reflection of Kingston's turbulent streets. But by '93, a shift in Panhead's message signaled artistic growth. Tracks like Under Bondage and African Princess traded bravado for reflection, hinting at a new chapter both musically and personally. He shared stages with the greats like Buju Banton, Beanie Man, Capleton, and many saw him as the next breakout star of dancehall. Then, tragedy struck. On an October night in '93, as Panhead left a dance in Spanish Town with 2 friends, he was ambushed and fatally shot at just 27 years old. The attack left behind a widow, 2 children, and a stunned music scene grappling with the loss of another promising voice. The crime remains unsolved to this day. His peers responded not with silence, but with sound. Capleton's cold-blooded murderer, Buju's murderer, and Beanie Man and Luciano's No Mama No Cry, which topped charts in '94, stood as powerful testaments to Panhead's influence and the pain of his loss. Though his career was short-lived, Panhead's legacy echoes on. His music captured a moment, a movement, and a mood that still resonates in the story of reggae and dancehall. ONeal Edwards. You know a group is serious when they turn heartbreak into headlining. Voicemail didn't just enter the chat, they left a message that echoed from Jamaica to Japan. What started as a five-man dream at a talent show in '99 quickly became one of dancehall's most recognizable trios. Originally made up of Robert Manning, Leonardo Grant, Kevin Blair, Jerome Jackson, and ONeal Edwards, Voicemail hit early turbulence when Robert and Leonardo bowed out in 2002. But rather than fold, the remaining three doubled down. They didn't just hustle, they strategized, honing their skills and recording their first track as a trio in 2003. By 2004, their energy exploded with Wetty Time. This was a collaboration that lit up the streets and dance floors, featuring dance legend Bogle and produced by Danny Champagne. From there, it was a whirlwind of hits like Ready to Party and Wacky Dip, each track paired with dance moves that made your feet betray you in the best way. Voicemail's debut album, Hey, dropped in 2006, smashing expectations and selling globally. Their follow-up albums, Let's Go and Jump Off, saw them step into international stardom, headlining reggae festivals in Japan and amassing fan bases from Brooklyn to Berlin. Tragedy struck in 2010 with the loss of beloved member ONeal Edwards, shaking the group and the entire dancehall community. But Voicemail's story didn't end, it evolved. With resilience stitched into every beat and lyric, the remaining members carried the torch, honoring their friend by continuing the movement they started together. From Kingston's pavement to international stages, Voicemail proved that rhythm, resilience, and a little wacky dip can take you anywhere. What we just explored isn't just a list of names or headlines. It's a powerful reminder of how deeply violence has touched even the most soulful corners of music. These 15 reggae legends didn't just give us beats to dance to. They gave us stories, struggles, and truth wrapped in rhythm. Whether they survived the shots or were taken too soon, their legacy lives on through every speaker that blasts their sound. From the tragic and unresolved loss of rising stars like Panhead and Winston Riley to the startling tragedies of Peter Tosh and ONeal Edwards, each story carries weight. It's a sobering look at the realities many artists face behind the scenes, especially those using their voices to speak truth to power, rep their roots, or simply try to live their dreams in a tough world. So, here's the real question. How do we honor them? We keep the music alive. We share their stories. We stay curious about the history behind the hits. If this video gave you something to think about, or made you look at reggae a little differently, hit that like button, drop a comment with your favorite reggae artist, and subscribe for more untold stories behind the music. One love, always.